As a child, David Livingstone shared a single room with his family in an apartment house in Blantyre, Scotland, a country in the United Kingdom, which also includes England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. It wasn't too crowded in that room when David was born on March 19, 1813. Just him, his mother Agnes, his father Neil, and his brother John, who was almost 2 years older. Over the next several years, though, Agnes and Neil had several more children, 2 girls and another boy, and it became very crowded. 2 other children died when they were still babies. The entire family did everything in their one room. They cooked, ate, cleaned, studied, and slept there. There was enough room for the beds because they fit underneath each other, smaller ones on wheels tucked under larger ones. At night, the family rolled out the beds, which took up much of the space in the room. The Livingstones' room was one of 8 on their floor of the building. One family lived in each of the 8 rooms. And the building had 3 floors, so 24 families lived in the building. Some of the families kept chickens or other animals in their rooms, even though it was against the rules. All of them threw their garbage down holes cut into the building's staircases, and all of them used an old-fashioned toilet that was simply a pail they kept covered with dirt. The building smelled. It was dirty, and there were far too many people living there. David did not have a comfortable life while growing up. David's father traveled door to door selling tea, but most of the families in the building had someone who worked in the local cotton mill, where yarn and cloth were made. The owner of the cotton mill made a lot of money and lived in a big house in the town, but he paid his workers very little. Neil Livingstone didn't have a job at the mill, but he didn't make very much money selling tea either. So the boys of the Livingstone family went to work in the cotton mill when they were still children. David was just 10 when he began his first job at the mill as a piecer. Working as a piecer meant fixing the threads that broke on the spinning machines. Piecers were often children because the job meant crawling under machinery or climbing on top of it. They were better at this than adults, and their size was more suited to the job, which was hard, dangerous work. The hours at the mill were long, and the building was hot. Mill workers, including the children, worked from 6 o'clock in the morning until 8 at night. The mill was almost 90 degrees inside because the heat was good for the cotton. Sometimes the piecers had a bucket of water poured over them. It wasn't to cool off, though. It was to wake them up if they were getting tired near the end of a long day. Still, that was better than the other punishment they received if they didn't spot threads that broke: a beating with a leather strap. By the end of the day, many of the piecers were too tired to do anything but go home and sleep so they could do it all again the next day. Not David, though. After he got off work, he went to an evening school. Lessons were taught for 2 hours beginning at 8 o'clock at night. The teacher was a man hired by the mill. Then, after David was done at 10 o'clock, he went home to read. Often he read books about science and geography. He read until at least midnight and sometimes later. Then his mother would take the book out of his hands and tell him to sleep. After all, he had to be back at work again by 6 o'clock in the morning. It was a tough life, but David wasn't unhappy. The first time David got paid, most of what he earned went straight to his parents. But with the little bit left over, he bought a book to learn Latin. When David wasn't studying Latin, he especially liked to read books on travel. He dreamed of seeing the world outside Scotland and of visiting the places he read about. They were far, far away from the cotton mill of Blantyre. David's father, however, wanted him to read books about religion. The Livingstones were Christian. Neil didn't like it when David read books about science. He thought that sometimes science tried to take the place of God.